The first poem I'd like to read is called The Iron Age Boat at Comatruish. It's a story about a farmer who, when he was in his 70s, dug up an Iron Age boat, an ancient boat from the 2nd century AD, and it remained preserved by the bog water in this beautiful place, quite near to where I grew up.
Presentare la prima poesia, La barca dell'età del ferro a Comatruish, si basa su una storia vera di un contadino che negli anni 70 per caso in una torbiera ha ritrovato questa barca risalente al II secolo a.C.
The Iron Age boat at Comatruish. If you doubt, you can put your fingers in the holes where the oar pegs went. If you doubt still, look past its deep mooring to the mountains that enfold the Corrie's waterfall of lace, through which, they say, you can see out but not in. If you doubt that, hear the falcon crying down from Gneeve's bog, cut from the mountain top. And if you doubt, after all these witnesses, no boat dredged back from the dead could make you believe. The next poem is called A Nun Takes the Veil. The occasion of the poem was meeting a nun from the west of Ireland, from the Aran Islands, out in the Atlantic. She worked as a cook in a student hostel near Oxford, and I met her there in her 70s. And she told me that the day she entered the convent for the first time, she saw a motor car for the first time as well. And then, of course, didn't really see one again for 40 years.
La seconda poesia, Una suora prende il velo, trae spunto da un incontro che ebbi negli anni 70 con una suora che proveniva dall'Irlanda occidentale, quindi si affacciava sull'Atlantico, la sua zona di provenienza, e l'incontro avvenne in quanto lei lavorava come cuoca a un ostello per la gioventù vicino a Oxford. Lei mi raccontò che quando andò in convento vide per la prima volta in vita sua un'automobile, esperienza che non fu ripetuta se non 40 anni dopo, quando uscì dal convento.
A nun takes the veil. That morning early, I ran through briars to catch the calves that were bound for market. I stopped the once to watch the sun rising over Doolin across the water. The calves were tethered outside the house while I had my breakfast, the last one at home for 40 years. I had what I wanted, they said I could, so we'd loaf bread and marry biscuits. We strung the calves behind the boat, me keeping clear to protect my style, confirmation suit and my patent sandals. But I trailed my fingers in the cool green water, watching the puffins driving homeward to their nests on Arran. On the Galway mainland, I tiptoed clear of the cow-dung slipway and watched my brothers heaving the calves as they lost their footing. We went in the trap, myself and my mother, and I said goodbye to my father then. The last I saw of him was a hat and jacket and a Sally stick driving cattle to Ballyvaughan. He died, they told me, in the county home, asking to see me. But that was later. As we trotted on through the morning mist, I saw a car for the first time ever, hardly seeing it before it vanished. I couldn't believe it, and I stood up looking to where I could hear its noise departing. But it was only a glimpse. That night in the convent, the sisters fussed me, but I couldn't forget the morning's vision, and I fell asleep with the engine humming through the open window. The next poem is called The Day I Outlived My Father, a curious subject, really. The reason I moved from Ireland to England was that my Irish father died when I was quite young, when I was 16. But I remember calculating the point at which I had lived longer than him. which is a curious kind of anniversary.
La poesia seguente, intitolata Il giorno in cui diventai più vecchio di mio padre, un argomento un po' inconsueto, semplicemente dovuto al fatto che all'età di 16 anni persi mio padre irlandese e io mi ricordo di aver calcolato con attenzione il giorno in cui io avrei vissuto più a lungo di lui.
The day I outlived my father. Yet no one sent me flowers or even asked me out for a drink. If anything, it makes it worse, your early death, that having now at last outlived you, I too have broken ranks, lacking maybe the imagination to follow you in investigating that other, older world. So I am in new territory from here on, must blaze my own trail, read alone the hoof tracks and the summer powdered dust, and set a good face to the future. At liberty at last, like mad Arnaut, to cultivate the wind, to hunt the bull on hareback, to swim against the tide. The next is called A Candle for Dolly Duggan, and it is subtitled Venice, Easter 2001. Dolly Duggan was a friend of my mother, was a friend of our family, who was a great mixture of the secular and the spiritual. She went to Mass every day. This is in Ireland, of course. But she also drank red wine and smoked cigarettes. And she, whenever anything was bothering you, she said that she would light a candle for you in the church. So when you were worrying, you knew that Dolly's candle was lighting, looking after you. And after she died, I've gone around Europe, like Rome, lighting candles for her.
Quest'altra poesia si intitola Una candela per Dolly Duggan. Dolly era un'amica di mia mamma, un'amica di famiglia, ed era un curioso miscuglio di laicità e spiritualismo. Andava a messa tutti i giorni, parliamo dell'Irlanda, però le piaceva fumare e bere vino rosso. E lei, quando c'era qualcosa che ti turbava, ti preoccupava, ti prometteva che avrebbe acceso per te una candela. Bene, dopo la sua morte io viaggiai in Europa e in varie città, anche Roma per esempio, e mi impegnai ad accendere delle candele per lei.
A Candle for Dolly Duggan, Venice, Easter 2001. Improbabilities, of course, we all know that this graceful taper I force into the tallowed cast iron beneath the Assumption in the Frari could change the heavens so that she can pick up her cigarettes and lighter to move on to a higher circle, as before she moved, talking through the lanes of Cork. Sir Thomas Browne said, there aren't impossibilities enough in religion for an active faith. So I'll go on spending liras and francs and pesetas across the smoky hush of Catholic Europe until she says, that's enough. And then I'm free to toast her in red wine outside in the sunlit squares. The next poem, the penultimate poem, is called Ter Conatus. Ter Conatus is that literary motif, or it's Virgil's expression for the motif, which is in Homer, in the Iliad, and in the Aeneid, and in Dante, and so on. When somebody from this life, like Aeneas in Virgil, goes through the afterlife and meets people whom he loved while he was alive. He, of course, has his full body still. He is traveling as a human being through the afterlife, but they are only shades. So he tries to embrace Creosa, his wife, and Anchises, his father, but of course his arms just pass through them because they're only shades.
This has to be the last poem. There's no time for the next one. Allora, passiamo adesso a Ter Conatus. Ter Conatus è un'espressione che ritroviamo nell'Eneide, che fa riferimento a questo passaggio dal nostro mondo al di là, ed è un richiamo ai tentativi vani di Enea di abbracciare gli spiriti della moglie e del padre, che poi viene ripreso come tema anche da Dante.
And before reading the last poem, I'd like to add my thanks and say I'm very grateful to have been brought here and to read to all of you today, and grateful to you for coming, and grateful to my translators.
E quindi questa in realtà sarà l'ultima delle mie poesie, quindi vorrei anch'io ringraziare gli organizzatori e i miei traduttori per il lavoro che hanno fatto, e ovviamente ringraziare voi della vostra presenza.
Ter Conatus. Sister and brother, nearly 60 years they'd farmed together, never touching once. Of late, she'd been coping with a pain in her back, realization dawning slowly that it grew differently from the warm ache that resulted periodically from heaving churns onto the milking stand. She wondered about the doctor. When, finally, she went, it was too late, even for chemotherapy. And still she wouldn't have got round to telling him, except that one night, watching television, it got so bad she gasped and struggled up, holding her waist. "Do you want a hand?" he asked, taking a step towards her. "I can manage," she answered, feeling for the stairs. 3 times like that he tried to reach her. But being so little practiced in such gestures, 3 times the hand fell back and took its place unmoving at his side. After the burial, he let things take their course. The neighbours watched in pity the rolled-up bales standing silent in the fields with the aftergrass growing into them, and wondered what he could be thinking of, which was that evening when, almost breaking with a lifetime of taking real things for shadows, he might have embraced her with a brother's arms. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.